CreepyCorner stories.
Hey everyone, welcome back to CreepyCorner stories. You know, diving into the dark web is always risky, but sharing these stories with you makes it worth it. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I've noticed that these kinds of stories hit differently depending on where you are. It might even make the experience a little creepier. So, tell me, are you watching from the safety of your home or somewhere less secure? I found a dark web page selling tickets to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The warning reads, "You must arrive after midnight." I'm not the type of person who scares easily. I've seen my fair share of messed up things online. Red rooms, live leaks, cartel videos, all that dark web horror story crap people talk about. Most of it's fake, but sometimes you stumble across something that makes you question if it was ever meant to be found. This happened about a month ago. I was on a Discord call with some friends, all of us bored out of our minds at like 2 a.m. We were messing around with a Tor browser, hopping through random dark websites, when my friend Ryan, the self-proclaimed hacker of the group, found something weird. It was a page called Fazbear's After Dark, a janky, outdated-looking site with nothing but a pitch-black background and red text that read, "Limited tickets available. All sales final. No refunds." Underneath, there was a single image, a low-resolution photo of what looked like an old run-down Chuck E. Cheese, but with a sign that said Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, like straight up ripped from the game. Or at least, that's what I thought at first. But the more I looked at it, the more wrong it felt. The lighting was off. The entrance looked abandoned, the kind of place that had been shut down for years, but the neon sign still glowed. I laughed. "Bro, this is some Five Nights at Freddy's ARG crap." Ryan, though, didn't laugh. "Dude, this site has an actual checkout page." I clicked on the buy ticket button, fully expecting it to be a dead link. But no, it opened a form asking for a Bitcoin payment of $250. I wasn't about to drop that kind of money on what was probably a joke, but curiosity got the best of me. I scrolled down to read the rules, which were somehow even weirder than the site itself. 1. You must arrive at the location between 12 a.m. and 12:30 a.m. 2. Do not bring a phone, no cameras, no recording devices. 3. Do not touch the animatronics. 4. Do not try to leave before 6 a.m. 5. If you see something unusual, do not acknowledge it. At this point, I was convinced it was an elaborate prank, some FNAF fans' attempt at making an interactive horror experience, or something. That was until Ryan bought a ticket. Dude straight up pulled out his crypto wallet and sent the $250. I thought he was joking until his screen refreshed and a download link appeared with an address. Not an IP address, a real physical address in Utah. My stomach dropped. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was supposed to be fictional, right? But this was real. And Ryan, he was actually planning to go. At first, I told him he was a dumbass, that it was a scam, but he just grinned and said, "If it's fake, I'll just drive by and prove it." So, like an idiot, I agreed to go with him. The plan was simple. We'd fly into Salt Lake City, rent a car, and check out the address. If it was some random abandoned building, we'd leave. But if it was real, if there was actually something there, we'd go inside. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. I should have never gone. I should have told Ryan to forget about it, that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. but we were just a couple of idiots chasing a thrill, convinced we were stepping into some elaborate horror experience, maybe even a viral ARG. It wasn't a game. We landed in Salt Lake City late at night. The drive to the location was about an hour outside the city, just a long stretch of road leading into the middle of nowhere. No streetlights, no signs of life, just miles of empty highway and our headlights cutting through the darkness. The GPS led us to an overgrown road that barely looked drivable. We turned onto it, bumping along the cracked asphalt, past rusted-out road signs that didn't have any words on them anymore. Then we saw it. A building stood at the end of the road, barely visible in the moonlight. The neon sign over the entrance flickered. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, just like in the games. But this wasn't some fan-made set or haunted house attraction. This place was rotting. The windows were covered in grime. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown with weeds, and the door looked like it hadn't been opened in years. And yet, that neon sign still glowed, buzzing faintly in the silence. I turned to Ryan. "Dude, this doesn't feel right." He grinned. "That's the point." Before I could argue, he was already out of the car, walking towards the entrance, like he had nothing to be afraid of. I had no choice but to follow. The door wasn't locked. It creaked open slowly, revealing a lobby that smelled like old grease, mold, and something else. Something foul. The place looked exactly how you'd imagine an abandoned Chuck E. Cheese would look. Dusty prize counters, torn up arcade carpets, shattered screens on old game cabinets. The tables were still set, with dirty plates and half-full cups of black, moldy liquid. Then I noticed something worse. The animatronics were still there. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy stood on the stage, frozen in place. But they weren't like the cartoony versions from the games. These things looked real. Their fur was stained, their eyes were sunken and dull, and their metal joints were covered in what looked like dried, dark rust. That's when I noticed the smell was strongest near them, like rotting meat. Ryan, being the dumbass he is, started walking towards them. I grabbed his arm. "Dude, number." He shrugged me off. "Relax. It's just a bunch of broken robots." Then the lights shut off. Total darkness. I froze. My breathing sounded deafening in the silence. Ryan whispered, "Power outage?" A noise echoed from the back of the room. A slow, mechanical whirring. Then, footsteps. Not human footsteps. Heavy, metallic, coming straight toward us. Ryan grabbed his phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, landing on Freddy Fazbear. He wasn't on the stage anymore. He was standing 10 feet closer. I felt my stomach drop. "Ryan, we need to leave." But Ryan wasn't listening. He was too focused on the fact that Freddy wasn't frozen anymore. His head had turned slightly, facing us, and then his mouth twitched. Something inside of him shifted. I heard a faint, wet, squelching sound, like something moving around inside his suit. Ryan took a step back. "What the hell?" The mechanical whirring got louder. Then Freddy's mouth opened, not like an animatronic, not a smooth, pre-programmed movement. This was unnatural, jerky, twitchy, like something inside him was forcing his mouth open. Then he spoke. "Help. Me." The voice didn't sound robotic. It sounded human, wet, choking, like someone trying to speak through a mouth full of blood. That's when Ryan screamed. Not a normal scream. A blood-curdling, animalistic howl that sent pure terror through my body. I turned. Something had grabbed him. A hand. It was reaching out from inside Freddy's suit. A human hand. Torn. Bloody. fingers bent at unnatural angles. It yanked Ryan towards Freddy's open mouth. Ryan thrashed, clawing at the carpet, his screams turning into choking gasps as Freddy's jaw clamped down on his shoulder. I grabbed him, pulling with everything I had, but Freddy was stronger. Ryan's eyes were bulging, blood bubbling from his lips as the animatronic crunched down. His body convulsed violently. Then, a sharp, wet snap. His scream stopped. I let go. Ryan's body twitched once, then went limp. Freddy's mouth slowly opened. Ryan's headless torso slumped to the ground. His severed head was still in Freddy's mouth, jaw hanging open, eyes frozen in terror. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. Then I heard it. A whisper. Not from Freddy. From inside the suit. Run. I ran. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I sprinted through the darkness, blindly crashing into chairs, tables, arcade machines. Then I saw it. An exit sign. I bolted towards it, yanking the door open, expecting fresh air. Instead, I stumbled into a hallway. A long, endless hallway lined with doors. And as soon as I stepped inside, the door behind me slammed shut. No handle. No way back. I was trapped. I turned, heart pounding, as I heard it. Not from behind me. From everywhere. Voices. Dozens of them. Crying, whispering, begging. Some sounded like kids. Some sounded like adults. But they all said the same thing. Don't let them put you in the suit. Ryan was dead. That thought should have broken me. Should have left me curled up in a corner, crying, unable to function. But when you witness something like that, when you watch your best friend's head get crushed inside the jaws of something that isn't supposed to be alive, your brain doesn't react the way you think it would. There was no time for grief, because I was trapped. The door was gone, the one I had just come through, gone, as if it had never existed, and now I was standing in a hallway that shouldn't have been there. It stretched on forever, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights overhead. The walls were stained with something dark, red, brown, almost black. Dried streaks of handprints covered the floor and smeared across the doors lining the hallway. Every door was numbered. They weren't in order. Some were single digits, 3, 9, 6, while others had 4, even 5-digit numbers scratched into the wood. The numbers weren't painted. They were carved, deep gouges, like someone had scratched them in with a blade. I took a slow step forward, my shoes sticking slightly to the floor. I didn't want to think about why. Some of the doors were open just a crack, just enough to see inside. I wish I never looked. The first room had a pile of stuffed animals, but the longer I stared, the more I realized they weren't normal. They had human teeth. Their fur was matted with something wet, and when I stepped closer, I saw that some of them were moving, their tiny stitched mouths twitching like they were trying to whisper. I didn't go any closer. I kept walking. The next door was slightly ajar, a humming noise coming from inside, a mechanical hum, like old arcade machines left running too long. I pushed the door open a little more, just enough to see. Inside was a row of children, or what was left of them. They were strapped into arcade cabinets, heads forced back into the screens. Their eyes were gone, nothing but black, gaping sockets, wires snaking out from inside. Their hands twitched on the joysticks, even though most of their fingers were missing. The cabinets were running some kind of game, a distorted, glitching version of Five Nights at Freddy's. But the cameras weren't security feeds. They were real. I saw the lobby, the stage, the animatronics. I saw Ryan's body, slumped at Freddy's feet. And then Freddy looked at the camera and smiled. I slammed the door shut. I kept moving. My heartbeat was thunder in my ears now, my breath coming out in sharp, ragged gasps. The hallway didn't end. It just kept going, twisting in ways that didn't make sense. Some doors were upside down. Some stretched so high I couldn't see the top. Others were so small that only a child could crawl through. Then I reached room 2014. The number burned in my brain, because it was the same year the first FNAF game came out. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe because it was the only door that looked clean. No blood, no claw marks, no humming noises behind it. Inside was a small security office, a desk, a fan, a monitor, just like the game. I stepped inside. The second I did, the door slammed shut behind me. I was locked in. The monitor flickered to life, and I saw myself. A grainy security camera feed. Me, standing in the office, staring at the screen. Then the camera switched. Cam 1, A, the stage. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, standing, still, waiting. The screen flickered. Cam 2, B, hallway outside the office. Empty. Then the lights flickered again. And now there was something there. Not an animatronic, not a person, something in between. It was wearing a Freddy suit, but it wasn't an animatronic. The suit was rotting, sagging in places like it was filled with something soft. The eyes inside weren't glass. They were human, bloodshot, wide, staring at the camera. I turned around just in time to hear the vent behind me shift. A low, wet breathing sound. I didn't look. I threw myself at the door, banging, kicking, screaming. Something behind me was crawling out of the vent. The door didn't budge. The breathing got louder. Then, a hand clamped around my shoulder. Fingers, flesh, human, but cold, rotten. And then, a voice, raspy, broken. "You're next." The hand on my shoulder was wrong. Not just cold, wet, like the skin had been soaking in something for too long. The fingers were long, unnaturally thin, and the nails, God, the nails were yellow, cracked, and caked with something dark under them. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because I knew that whatever was behind me wasn't supposed to exist. But then it leaned closer. Its breath hit the back of my neck, and it smelled putrid. Decay, old grease, and something else. Something sweet, like rotting fruit, like flesh that had been left in the heat for too long. Then it spoke. "It hurts." The voice wasn't robotic. It wasn't some pre-recorded animatronic line. It was human, raspy, wet, and struggling, like the person speaking was drowning in their own blood. Then I felt it. Something moving under my feet. I looked down. The carpet was pulsing, like breathing. The patterns on the arcade-themed floor had shifted. They weren't just colorful spirals and shapes anymore. They were faces, hundreds of them, mouths open, screaming, their eyes darting back and forth. They were alive, trapped beneath the floor. I did the only thing I could. I threw myself forward, slamming against the security desk, knocking the monitor to the floor. My legs buckled as the thing behind me let out a sharp, inhuman screech, like metal grinding on metal. I turned, just for a second. I wish I hadn't. The thing standing behind me wasn't a man. It wasn't an animatronic either. It was something in between. The Freddy suit was rotting, the fur peeling away to reveal blackened, decomposing flesh. One of its arms wasn't an arm anymore, just exposed bone, wrapped in tangled wires. The jaw hung open too far, revealing teeth that weren't fake. They were human. Some of them had braces. And the eyes. God, the eyes. One of them was glass, the dull, lifeless eye of the original animatronic. But the other was real, bloodshot, swollen, still moving. It was alive. It saw me. and then it lunged. I dove sideways, barely dodging as its jaw snapped shut right where my shoulder had been. I scrambled across the floor, clawing for the door. The thing moved faster than it should have been able to. The suit should have slowed it down, but it didn't. It was on all fours now, its back cracking as it twisted unnaturally, skittering toward me like a puppet on broken strings. I grabbed the doorknob, twisting, yanking, locked. Then I felt teeth sink into my ankle. Not a clean bite. A tearing, shredding pain as the thing's jaw locked down. I screamed. I kicked as hard as I could, my foot slamming against its rotting face. Something inside its skull crunched. Not metal, but bone. It shrieked, stumbling back, hands twitching like a glitching animatronic. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the monitor from the floor and smashed it against the door. Once. Twice. On the third hit, the wood snapped. I threw myself through the hole, fell face first into the hallway. I hit the ground hard, the air knocked out of my lungs. I rolled over. The thing was crawling out after me. Its shoulders twisted unnaturally, head jerking from side to side. Then, the door slammed shut, by itself. The hallway was dead silent. I could still hear the thing inside, screaming, banging. Its voice changed. It wasn't the distorted, broken speech anymore. It was a kid's voice, crying, "Please, please let me out. It's so dark. It hurts." I squeezed my eyes shut. I wasn't falling for it. I pushed myself up, limping down the hallway. My leg was bleeding badly, every step sending a sharp, burning pain up my body. I had to get out, but this place didn't make sense. I was back in the hallway, but the doors were different now. They weren't numbered anymore. Now they had names. Names I didn't recognize at first. Peter, Mark, Danielle, Alyssa, Miguel. I kept walking. The names started looking familiar. Then I saw it. A door with Ryan's name on it. I stopped. The door handle was covered in blood. It wasn't fresh. It was old, rust-colored, flaking. I heard something behind the door. A soft, wet breathing. I backed away, kept moving. The next door made my blood run cold. It had my name on it. The handle was clean, like it had just been placed there, like the room was waiting for me. I bolted, didn't think, didn't stop. I sprinted down the hallway, ignoring the pain in my leg, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the doors that were starting to open on their own. Then I saw it. At the very end of the hallway, a green exit sign, a real one, not flickering, not distorted. Real. I ran harder. The doors were slamming open behind me now. I didn't look back. I could hear footsteps. Some of them were heavy, metallic, animatronics. Some were light, fast, human. Some weren't footsteps at all. They were crawling, clawing. I reached the exit door. I yanked it open, and the last thing I heard was a voice, whispering right against my ear. "You'll be back." I fell forward, and I was outside. I hit the ground hard. The air was cold, sharp against my skin. I rolled over, gasping, my body still expecting to feel that rotting hand grab me again, still expecting to hear those metallic footsteps closing in. But there was nothing. No animatronics, no voices, just the night sky above me and the overgrown parking lot stretching out in all directions. I was outside. I was alive. I forced myself to sit up. My whole body ached. My ankle throbbed. My head was pounding. And my hands were covered in blood. Not all of it was mine. I turned back toward the building. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza stood there, silent and empty. The neon sign was still glowing, but the moment my eyes landed on it, the letters flickered. They changed. The sign that once read, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, now said, "No one leaves." I scrambled to my feet. I had to get away. I turned toward the parking lot, searching for our rental car. It was gone. The parking lot was completely empty. My heartbeat hammered in my chest. I grabbed my phone. Dead. But I had just charged it at the airport. Something was wrong. Something was still wrong. I wasn't safe yet. I limped forward, forcing my leg to move, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I just needed to get to the road. Someone would come by. Someone had to come by. I walked for what felt like hours. The road never appeared. The dark trees surrounded me, stretching endlessly in every direction. There were no signs, no landmarks. Like the world outside of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza didn't exist anymore. I kept moving. Then, far in the distance, I saw it. Headlights. A car. I nearly collapsed from relief. I ran, waving my arms, screaming for help. The car didn't slow down. It kept moving, passing right by me. And for a split second, just one horrible, freezing second, I saw the driver's face. It was Ryan. His head was still attached, but his eyes were gone. Two dark, empty sockets stared straight ahead as his hands gripped the wheel. His mouth hung open like he was trying to scream. Then the car vanished into the darkness. I stood there, frozen, my body trembling with pure horror. This wasn't real. This wasn't real. A sound crackled to life behind me. Music. That same, slow, distorted music box jingle from the games. I turned around. The building was closer now. I had walked miles away from it, and yet it was right there again. And the front doors were open, waiting. Number I wasn't going back in. I turned back toward the road, but there were no headlights anymore. No car, just trees. And then the ground beneath me shifted. It moved, like something underneath was breathing. A low, deep vibration rumbled up through my feet. A sound so deep I could feel it in my bones. I stumbled back, and then the trees moved. No, not trees. Figures. Tall, thin shadows with glowing white eyes watching me from the darkness. I took a step back. The ground felt soft now. Not dirt. Something else. I looked down. It wasn't ground. It was a face. A giant, buried face. It was Freddy. I was standing on a massive, rotting Freddy Fazbear head, half buried beneath the earth. Its eyes snapped open. The whole forest shook. The shadows in the trees began to move. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know if I was going in circles, if the trees were shifting around me, if the ground was even real anymore. I just ran. Then I saw it. A single phone booth in the middle of the clearing. It was old, rusted, not supposed to be here, but the phone inside was ringing. I skidded to a stop, chest heaving. The shadows behind me were closing in. I had no choice. I picked up the receiver. For a moment, silence. Then, a voice. A man's voice. Calm. Hollow. "You were never supposed to leave." I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry. My body felt wrong. My skin felt too tight, like I was being squeezed into something too small. The voice continued. "You bought the ticket." The shadow stepped closer. "And now?" A long pause. Then, in a voice I recognized, Ryan's voice. "You have to play the game." The ground opened beneath me. I fell straight into Freddy's mouth, and everything went black. I woke up screaming. I was in a hospital, a real hospital. Machines beeped. Nurses rushed in. A doctor tried to calm me down. I was alive. I was back. But something was wrong. I grabbed the doctor's arm. "Where am I?" He frowned. "Salt Lake City Medical Center. You were found unconscious in an abandoned parking lot." I struggled to sit up. My head pounded. Ryan. Where's Ryan? The doctor looked at me like I was crazy. There was no one else. I shook my head. No, he was with me. We went to... I stopped. I couldn't say it, like something was blocking the words in my throat. The doctor sighed. Sir, you were found alone, and according to the report... He hesitated, then handed me my wallet and my ticket. The same dark web ticket Ryan had bought, but now it had my name on it, and at the bottom, in small red text, "Thank you for playing. You'll be back soon." I threw it across the room. I'm writing this now, back at home, trying to convince myself it wasn't real, that it was all some kind of hallucination. But at night, I hear the music box, and sometimes, when I look in the mirror, for just a second, I see Ryan, and he's smiling. I paid for a dark web paranormal investigation into the Amityville house. The response was just one word: leave. I need to get this out. Not because I want attention, not because I need people to believe me, but because I haven't slept in 4 days, and if I close my eyes for too long, I see it staring back at me. I made a mistake, a stupid, reckless mistake, and I think something followed me back. It started with an obsession, the paranormal, the unexplained, the things that make your skin crawl when you're alone at night. Most people like ghost stories in a casual way. They watch a horror movie, read a creepy thread, then turn the lights back on and laugh it off. Not me. I wanted proof. Not blurry photos, not exaggerated documentaries. I wanted to look at something impossible and know that the word wasn't what we thought it was. But the problem is, when you start searching for that kind of thing, you don't find ghosts. You find people. People who have seen things they shouldn't have. People who went too far. People who didn't come back the same. And worse, you find doors. And if you're like me, if you're really like me, you don't just look at them. You open them. That's how I found the site. It wasn't some deep web horror movie cliche. I wasn't scrolling through Tor looking for red rooms or hitmen. I was just on a forum, one of those underground places where people talk about the things they can't talk about anywhere else. Most of it was the usual BS, fake hauntings, made-up rituals. But then, buried in the middle of a thread, I saw someone mention it. A service. They'll investigate any location, no matter how dangerous, no matter who owns it. If you pay, they go. I thought it was a joke, until someone else replied, "It's real, but don't use it. Ever." I clicked the link anyway. The website was nothing but a black screen. No title, no graphics, just red text at the top that said, "Real investigations, real danger, no refunds." Beneath that, a list of locations. Some were famous. The Winchester Mystery House, Waverly Hills, Eastern State Penitentiary. But some I had never heard of before. Places with names that sounded wrong. The empty rooms, the 1903 hospital, the house that hears. I searched for them. They didn't exist. But at the very bottom, in glitched out, broken text, there was one that did. 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville, New York. My hands were already shaking when I clicked it. The price, $2,500. I didn't think. I didn't stop. I paid. The confirmation email was instant. No subject line, no sender, just a single sentence. 48 hours. Link incoming. And that was it. No instructions, no warnings, just me, and the feeling that something had already gone very wrong. I don't believe in regret. People say that all the time. like it's some kind of motivational quote to make themselves feel better about their mistakes. But it's not. It's a lie. Because regret is real. And when you feel it, truly feel it, it sits in your chest like something rotting. It's the taste of old pennies in the back of your throat. It's that gnawing feeling in your gut that something is watching you from the corner of the room, just out of sight. It's the way your hands start shaking when you think about what you did. That's what regret really feels like. And I felt it the moment I clicked that link. It was 2 a.m. when the email arrived. No subject, no sender, just a single hyperlink, black text against a white background. I should have hesitated. I should have stopped, but I didn't. I clicked. The screen went black. Then the feed started. At first, all I could see was static, grainy, flickering pixels that pulsed across the screen like something breathing. Then the picture snapped into focus. It was nighttime. A dark suburban street, streetlights buzzing faintly in the distance. A row of houses, silent and still, sitting like open graves with their mouths shut. The camera moved, shaky and unsteady. Someone was walking. Their breathing was uneven, sharp, shallow inhales, like they were trying to be quiet but couldn't control it. Then the camera tilted up, and there it was, the Amityville house. I'd seen 1,000 pictures of it before, documentaries, horror movies, conspiracy threads, but none of them felt like this. Through the camera, the house looked alive. Not in the way people describe haunted houses, not in some dramatic gothic horror way. Number. This was different. The house looked like it was waiting, like it had been waiting for a very, very long time. The person holding the camera hesitated. Then, in a whisper so soft, I almost didn't hear it, they spoke. I'm inside. The front door creaked open, and the screen filled with darkness. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The camera just hovered in place, staring into the blackened void beyond the threshold. Then, it stepped forward. The moment the investigator crossed the threshold, the sound changed. Before, there had been ambient noise, the wind outside, the hum of the streetlights, the distant chirp of insects. Now, nothing. The silence was thick, heavy, like the house was pressing down on the audio, strangling it. The person moved forward, slow, careful. The dim green glow of their night vision cast everything in an eerie, unnatural light. The first room they entered was the living room. At first glance, everything looked normal, too normal. The furniture was neat. The photos were still on the walls. A half-empty coffee cup sat on the end table, as if someone had just left it there. But something was off. The fireplace was lit. Bright orange flames flickered inside, casting warped shadows across the floor. The wood was fresh, untouched. That wasn't possible. There was no power in the house. The investigators stopped. Their breathing grew ragged, almost wheezing. Then, in the distance, somewhere upstairs, something creaked. A single, slow, deliberate footstep. The investigator froze. I typed into the chat. Yeah, there was a chat function. Go check it out. The camera tilted toward the staircase. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, step by step, they moved up. The hallway at the top was wrong. Not in a way I could explain. It wasn't the way it looked. It was the way it felt. Like it was longer than it should be. Like the shadows were too deep, stretching and warping in ways that didn't make sense. The investigator turned left. Then, in a whisper so quiet it barely registered, they said, "What the earth care?" I squinted at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. One of the doors at the end of the hallway had something carved into it. Deep, jagged letters. A single word. Leave. The cut marks were fresh, like someone had just finished carving them. I typed, "Get closer." The camera moved forward. The air felt thicker. Even through the screen, I could feel it. Like something heavy was pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Then, a sound. A sharp, wet scratching noise from inside the room, like nails dragging down wood. Then, suddenly, the audio cut out. The video kept playing, but there was no sound, no footsteps, no breathing, just the silent, flickering green haze of the night vision. The investigator turned, ready to run, but then they stopped dead. The camera whipped back around. The door with the carved word, it was open. It had been shut tight just seconds ago, but now it was wide open, and something was inside. At first, I thought the screen was glitching. The shape standing in the doorway wasn't right. It was too tall. Its head was tilted unnaturally to the side, and its skin wasn't skin. It was dark, not like shadows, not like something in the dark, just dark, like the absence of light itself. The camera shook. The investigator was backing up. Then, the audio came back, a sound so loud, so distorted, it felt like it was shaking the entire room. It wasn't a scream. It was worse. It was a laugh. Long, gurgling, wrong. The investigator turned and ran. The camera bounced wildly as they sprinted down the hallway toward the staircase. But as they reached the top of the stairs, they stopped. The camera turned back to the hallway. And there, standing at the very end, was another one. Same tilted head, same impossible height, same absence of light. Only this time, it was closer, too close. The camera glitched, and then the feed cut to black. The website, gone, like it had never existed, and my email, deleted, like it had never been sent. But the worst part, the part that keeps me awake at night, when the screen went black, I swear I still heard laughing. There's something wrong with my reflection. I don't mean in a metaphorical way. I don't mean that I'm paranoid. I mean it literally. I caught it last night. The way it lingered just a second too long when I looked away. The way its lips twitched when I wasn't moving. I turned the mirror around, but it doesn't matter, because I can still feel it watching me. I don't think I came back from this alone. It's been days since the stream, days since the website disappeared, since the investigator vanished, since I sat there, staring at a blank screen, feeling the walls of my apartment closing in. I thought that was the end of it. I thought that once the feed went black, I could just move on. But you don't watch something like that and walk away untouched. You don't see them and think you can just forget, because they don't forget you. And I think I made a mistake bigger than just watching. I think somehow, in some impossible way, I let them see me back. It started small, little things, shadows moving in places they shouldn't, a flicker of something at the edge of my vision, gone when I turned my head. The first time I heard it, I was in bed. It was past midnight, and my apartment was dead silent. I had barely slept since the stream, every little creak and groan of the building setting me on edge. Then, tap, tap, tap. I shut up, heart pounding. The sound was coming from my closet. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I stared, frozen. I don't know how long I waited before I finally moved, grabbing my phone and flipping on the flashlight. The pale blue beam hit the closet door, casting a long, thin shadow against the wall. I reached out. My fingers trembled against the handle. Then, just before I turned it, tap, 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 from the mirror. I snapped my head toward it, phone shaking in my grip. Nothing, just my own wide, terrified eyes staring back. I turned the closet light on and left it that way all night. It got worse after that. I stopped sleeping. I stopped leaving my apartment. I didn't feel safe anywhere, because no matter where I went, I felt watched. I'd sit at my desk, scrolling through my phone, and suddenly get that feeling, the one that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. That cold, sinking feeling, like someone is standing right behind you. But when I turned, nothing. It didn't matter if I was in my room, my car, a crowded Starbucks. I felt them, waiting, watching. And then, last night, I made the biggest mistake of all. I tried to go back. I don't know why. Maybe I thought if I could just find the site again, I'd find answers. Something to explain what happened. Something to prove I hadn't just imagined it. But the site was gone. No trace of it in my history. No link. No record. Like it had never existed. But that wasn't what scared me. Number. What scared me was the email, because when I checked my inbox, my hands still shaking from exhaustion, I had a new message. No subject, no sender, just one word. Leave. The exact same word carved into the door in that house. I closed my laptop so fast, I nearly broke the screen. My breath was coming too fast, too shallow. I wasn't crazy. Someone, something, was telling me to run, but I didn't, because I made the second biggest mistake of all. I looked at the mirror. There was something standing behind me, tall, thin. Its head was tilted, too far to the side, like its neck had snapped. It was the same thing I'd seen in the house, the same impossible darkness. It wasn't a reflection. It was inside the mirror. And then, it moved. Not like a normal movement, not like a person turning. It glitched. A sudden, sharp jerk forward, its mouth stretching into something wrong. My body locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except stare as it stepped closer. My phone vibrated. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Hands shaking, I grabbed it and looked at the screen. Another email. The same no sender. This time, 3 words. It sees you. I looked back at the mirror. It was gone. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make it stop. All I know is that I should have listened. Because when something tells you to leave, you fucking leave. But I didn't. And now it's everywhere. Watching, waiting. And the worst part? I think it's getting closer. There's something in my apartment. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't move when I'm looking at it. But I know it's here. I can feel it in the way the air thickens when I close my eyes. The way the temperature drops in the middle of the night, just enough for my breath to come out in small white clouds. And last night, when I turned over in bed, I felt the mattress sink behind me, like someone had just laid down next to me. It's been a week since the stream, 7 days since I let my curiosity go too far. And now, every second feels like a countdown to something I can't see coming. I tried to pretend it wasn't real. I tried to convince myself I was just paranoid, that I was losing sleep and imagining things. But when I woke up this morning, there were fingerprints on my bathroom mirror. Not normal fingerprints. Too long, too thin, too many. Like something had pressed its entire face against the glass while I was sleeping. And the worst part? There were no footprints leading up to it. Like it had just appeared. Like it had been there the whole time. Watching. The mannequins were the breaking point. I didn't own mannequins. I still don't know where they came from. But when I walked into my living room this morning, they were standing in a perfect circle, 6 of them, faceless, posed, their heads tilted at the same unnatural angle as the thing in the mirror, their hands raised like they had been clapping, like they had just finished a performance I had missed. My body locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And then my phone vibrated. A notification, no sender, no number, just a text. Don't turn around. My heart slammed against my ribs. My hands were shaking so bad, I nearly dropped the phone. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then, another text. You're playing the mannequin game. My stomach dropped. My vision blurred. I had no idea what that meant. Then, another text. Rules. If you turn around, you lose. The air was suddenly thick with something I couldn't explain. Like the walls of my apartment were pressing in. The mannequins were completely still, but I could feel something behind me. A weight in the air. A presence. Something that was too close. Watching. Waiting for me to turn around. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes. Hours. I didn't turn. I refused to turn. My skin felt tight, stretched too thin. My heartbeat was too loud. And then, another text. Close your eyes, count to 10. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the darkness was worse, because now I could hear breathing, not my own, something slow, ragged, wet, right behind me. 1, 2, 3. The air grew colder. Something shifted. 4, 5, 6. A whisper, too faint to hear, but it was right next to my ear. 7, 8, 9. And then, a hand on my shoulder. Not a grab, not a push, just a touch. Cold, clammy, like a corpse. 10. I opened my eyes. The mannequins were gone. I turned my apartment upside down, searched every corner, every closet. There was nothing. No mannequins, no handprints, like it never happened, except for one thing. The mirror. Because now, there was something written in the condensation. A message. 2 words. You won. I don't feel like I won. I feel like something is still here, waiting for me to play again. And I think next time, I won't win. I don't know if I'm alive anymore. I mean, technically, yeah. I can still breathe. I can still move. I can still feel my heart pounding way too fast in my chest. But something's wrong. I think I've been replaced. I think whatever was in that house, whatever I saw, whatever saw me back, I think it's wearing me like a suit. And I don't know if I'm the one controlling it anymore. I should have left the moment I saw that email. I should have packed my shit and driven until the roads ran out. But I didn't. Because fear does something sick to you. It makes you curious. It makes you think, if I just look a little longer, maybe I'll understand. And the second you think that, you've already lost. I barely slept after the mannequins. I left every light in my apartment on, locked the doors, checked the closets twice, but sleep still found me, fast and suffocating. And when I woke up, I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was standing in a field of dead grass. The sky above me was too dark, the air too still, and the house, the Amityville house, it was right in front of me, waiting. I tried to wake up, tried to tell myself it was a dream, but my feet were already moving forward, my hand already reaching for the door. The wood was warm, like something inside was breathing, like the house itself was alive. And the second I stepped through, the door slammed shut behind me. It wasn't the same house from the live stream. Not anymore. The furniture was gone. The walls were rotting, pulsing, damp, like something had been bleeding from the inside. And the smell, meat, rotten, wet flesh, like the house had been eating something alive. Or maybe someone. I turned to run, but the hallway was gone. The door I'd come through, just a solid wall of black, like the house had swallowed me. Then, footsteps. Not normal footsteps. Too slow, too deliberate, like something was dragging its feet, coming from the stairs, coming from above me, coming closer. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see. But something in my head whispered, "You have to." And I turned, and I saw it. It wasn't human. It wasn't even trying to be human. Its neck was bent too far to the side. Its arms were too long, too thin, twitching like a marionette. But the worst part, it was wearing my face. Not exactly my face, but close enough. Like it had been studying me. Like it had been practicing. Like it was trying to be me. And then it smiled. A slow, wet stretch of its mouth. Too wide, too wrong. And in my voice, it said, "Let's play another game." I tried to run, but the house wouldn't let me. The floor stretched beneath my feet. The walls closed in. I could feel the air getting thicker, hotter, like the house was breathing faster, excited, hungry. Then, everything snapped to black. I woke up in my apartment, in my bed, in my own skin. But something feels wrong. The mirrors don't show me right. My hands don't feel like mine. And when I speak, my voice isn't the same. Like there's something else inside me. Like something took my place. Like something won the game. And now it's waiting to play again. I bought a dark web file that claims the Blair Witch wasn't a hoax. The last known sightings happened 2 months ago. There are things in this world that are not meant to be seen. I don't mean secrets. I don't mean government cover-ups or some hidden knowledge of the universe that humanity isn't ready for. I mean things that, by their very nature, should never be witnessed by the human mind. Because once you do, they see you back. I didn't believe that before. I do now, and I don't think I'm alone anymore. It started like any other night. I was in my apartment, sitting in front of my laptop, in that weird space between being awake and drifting into the kind of exhaustion where you start seeing things move in your peripheral vision. The apartment was dark, the only light coming from my screen and the cheap neon glow of the city outside my window. I don't sleep much, not because I can't, but because I get this feeling whenever I close my eyes, this creeping sensation that something's just beyond my line of sight. Like if I let my guard down, even for a second, it will come closer. So, I don't sleep. Instead, I fill my nights with distractions. The internet is an infinite rabbit hole if you know where to look. I lurk in old conspiracy forums, watch YouTube videos of missing person cases, scroll through pages of deep web marketplaces selling things no sane person should ever purchase. It's not that I believe in any of it. I just like to see how far the rabbit hole goes. And that's how I found the post. It was buried in an old subreddit I didn't recognize, the kind that had almost no members, but somehow had new posts every day. The title caught my eye immediately. New evidence. The Blair Witch case was never closed. Last reported sighting, December 2, 2023. I blinked. At first, I thought it was just another theory. I'd seen 100 like it before. People overanalyzing every frame of the Blair Witch Project, claiming the actors really went missing, swearing they saw something moving in the background of the original footage. But something about this one felt wrong. I clicked on it. Inside was a Google Drive link. No description, no speculation, no long-winded breakdown of why they thought the Blair Witch was real. Just a link. I hesitated. For a moment, my rational brain told me to close the tab, but my curiosity was stronger. I clicked. The folder was labeled Evidence. Inside were multiple files. Some were police reports, others were what looked like archived forum screenshots. But one file stood out. A text document. It was simply titled, "Read this first." I clicked on it. A single sentence stared back at me. "If you open the file, she will know." I felt something cold crawl up my spine. I stared at the screen, waiting for my brain to rationalize what I had just read, waiting for the joke, the punchline, something to tell me this was just an elaborate prank. But there was nothing, just silence, and that creeping feeling again, like something was watching me. I should have closed the tab. Instead, I scrolled down, and that's when I saw the video, a single MP4 file titled Starbucks CCTV, December 12th, 2023, .mp4. I hesitated again. My heart was pounding now, though I didn't know why. It was just a file, just a stupid video file, but my hands were shaking as I clicked on it. The footage was grainy, standard security cam quality. It showed the inside of a Starbucks, one of those bigger ones, like you'd find in downtown New York, the kind with huge windows and lots of seating. The timestamp read December 12th, 2023, 3:03 p.m. At first, everything seemed normal. People ordering drinks, baristas working behind the counter, customers staring at their phones. But then, I saw her. A woman, sitting alone in the farthest corner. She wasn't drinking anything. She wasn't looking at her phone. She was just staring directly at the camera. I leaned closer. She wasn't blinking. Not once. She didn't even shift in her seat. Just sat there, completely motionless. I felt a tightness in my chest. Then, something happened that made my blood run cold. At exactly 3:03 p.m., every single person in the Starbucks turned their heads toward her at the exact same time. All of them, like a synchronized movement, like puppets. Then, the video cut to black. I sat there frozen, my breath coming out in short, shallow bursts. What the fuck had I just watched? I should have stopped there, but I didn't. I went back to the folder and clicked on one of the police reports. The victim's name was Kyle Thornton, age 26. Lost seen December 15th, 2023. The witness statements made my stomach twist into knots. I saw him the day before he disappeared, at Starbucks. He kept looking at this woman in the corner. But the weird thing is, I don't remember what she looked like. It's like my brain won't let me picture her face. I swallowed hard. Something about this wasn't right. I needed to stop. I needed to walk away. Then, my phone buzzed. A new email. The subject line was short. Delete the files. Now. It was from a different Proton mail address. I clicked on it, but there was nothing inside. Just that single sentence. My stomach dropped. I felt it again. That creeping sensation, like someone standing behind me. I turned my head slowly. Nothing. I exhaled shakily, trying to calm myself down. Then, something made me look at my door. I live alone. My apartment is on the 7th floor. There's security cameras in the hallways. But when I looked through the peephole, there was someone standing outside. Not knocking, not moving, just standing there. And I swear to God, it was her. There are moments in life when your body understands something before your brain does. Your lungs freeze. Your skin turns ice cold. Every hair on your body stands up, like static electricity is crawling over your flesh. And even though your mind is still screaming, "What the fuck is happening?" your body already knows the answer. Something is wrong. Something is here. I was standing in my dark apartment, staring through the peephole at her. That same woman from the video, standing perfectly still, outside my door. She wasn't knocking. She wasn't moving. Just standing there. She wasn't even breathing. My mouth was dry. My hands were gripping the door so tightly, I could feel the sweat on my palms making the wood damp. My body refused to move, like if I even shifted my weight, it would somehow break the illusion, and she would know I was on the other side. I didn't need to see her face. I already knew I wouldn't be able to remember it. I don't know how long I stood there, maybe minutes, maybe hours, but at some point, my body made the decision for me. I backed away, slowly. My feet made no sound. I moved inch by inch, stepping away from the door like I was in some kind of fucked up stealth game, where if I made even a single noise, I would die. I made it halfway across the room. Then, a sound, not a knock, not footsteps, something scraping. I turned my head, my heart slamming against my ribs, barely breathing. The sound was coming from the door. She was dragging her fingers down it. I could hear the fingernails against the wood. Long, slow strokes. Not like she was trying to get in, like she was testing it, feeling me. A sharp, violent shudder crawled down my spine, like cold fingers had just run up the back of my skull. I took another slow, careful step back. The scraping stopped. Silence. Then, a voice. Not from outside the door. Not from my phone. Not from my laptop. From inside the apartment. Right behind me. You shouldn't have watched it. I don't remember turning around. I don't remember moving at all. All I know is that suddenly, I was in my bathroom. I had locked the door. I had no memory of doing it. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I was going to pass out. I was drenched in sweat. My breathing was ragged, coming out in short, uneven gasps. The apartment was silent. I pressed my ear to the bathroom door. No footsteps, no scraping, just silence. For a long time, I didn't move. Then slowly, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. 3:06 a.m. I stared at the time. Something was wrong. I checked it again. 3:06 a.m. The seconds weren't changing. The clock was frozen. I don't know how long I sat there in that bathroom, staring at my frozen phone screen. At some point, exhaustion overtook terror, and I think I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, my phone was back to normal. The time was 9:42 a.m. The apartment was quiet. I stood up on shaking legs, unlocked the bathroom door, and slowly stepped into my living room. Everything looked the same. No signs of a break-in, no signs that anyone had been here. I forced myself to walk to the front door. My stomach turned when I saw the scratches. 4 long, deep marks running straight down the wood, like fingernails digging into it. I stared at them for what felt like an eternity. Then I noticed something else. There was an envelope on the floor. It had been slipped under my door. My hand shook as I picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid, a photo of me, standing in front of my apartment door, taken from inside my apartment. I dropped the photo. My stomach lurched. I turned so fast my vision blurred, scanning every inch of the apartment. I was alone, but I wasn't. I could feel it. Something had been here. Something had been watching me. I don't remember how long I stood there. My mind had completely shut down. Then, my laptop dinged. New email. I forced myself to walk toward the screen, feeling like my body wasn't even mine anymore. The sender was Proton Mail. The subject line was empty. The body of the email was just 2 words. Delete everything. I felt my hands tighten into fists. I should have I should have wiped my entire hard drive, thrown my laptop off the fucking balcony, and left town. Instead, I moved my shaking cursor over the email, hovering over the attached file. It was another video, but it wasn't from the dark web folder. It wasn't part of what I bought. It was from my own security camera, a video from inside my apartment. I clicked on it. The footage was grainy, time-stamped at 3:06 a.m. It showed me, standing completely still in the middle of my living room, my body facing the door, not moving, not blinking, not breathing. I felt something crawl through my veins. Then, something moved behind me. I saw it in the reflection of my laptop screen, a tall, distorted shadow, standing right behind me, watching, waiting. The video glitched, and then, for exactly one frame, I saw her face, and I understood why no one could remember it, because it was impossible. A hole where a face should be, a mouth that stretched open and open and open, and then my screen shut off. My apartment went completely dark, and behind me, I heard something exhale. There are things worse than death. I know that now. Most people think of death as the end, the worst possible outcome, the thing we all fear. But death is just a door, and there are things standing on the other side, waiting, watching, and sometimes, if you look too closely, if you dig into things that were never meant to be found, that door opens. I don't know how long I sat there in the dark. My laptop screen was dead. The only light in the apartment came from the tiny red dot of my security camera, blinking in the corner of the ceiling. A single recording light, watching me. I was too scared to move, because I could still feel it, the thing behind me. It wasn't breathing, it wasn't making a sound, but I knew it was there. My brain kept screaming at me to run, but I knew, I fucking knew, that if I turned around, I would see her, and if I saw her, I wouldn't be able to forget. I couldn't let that happen. I reached for my phone. It was dead. No power, no battery. I reached for the light switch. Nothing. The apartment was completely unnaturally silent. Not even the hum of the fridge. Not the distant sounds of the city through my window. Just silence. Like the world outside had stopped existing. I gripped the edge of my desk, my pulse hammering in my ears. Then, the red recording light on my security camera turned off. My stomach dropped. The camera was motion activated. It only shut off when it detected nothing. I wasn't alone, but whatever was in the room with me, it didn't register as human. I don't know how I got through that night. At some point, I must have passed out. When I woke up, it was morning. Light streamed through my window. My laptop screen was back on, like nothing had happened. My phone was charging on my desk, even though I never plugged it in. The apartment felt normal again, like the night before had been a dream, a hallucination, except it wasn't, because when I turned to look at my front door, the scratches were gone. The wood was perfectly smooth, like they had never been there at all. And that's when I started screaming. For the next 3 days, I tried to convince myself that I was going insane. I didn't go to work. I didn't leave my apartment. I barely ate. I just sat there, staring at my screen, rewatching the footage over and over, trying to convince myself that I had imagined all of it. But then, on the 4th day, my phone rang. A blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a notification popped up. One new message. I didn't want to listen to it. I knew what it was going to be, but my hands moved on their own, shaking as I put the phone to my ear and pressed play. At first, there was just static. Then, a voice, not whispering, not speaking, repeating, like a looped recording, the same sentence, over and over and over. Look behind you. Look behind you. Look behind you. Look behind you. I dropped the phone. The message kept playing, even though my phone screen was off. I grabbed it, turned it over, tried to shut it off. The screen was glitching, the battery draining. 10%, 5%, 2%. Then, the phone went black, and behind me, I heard something shift. I didn't look. I refused to look. Instead, I ran. I grabbed my keys, my laptop, and bolted out of the apartment. Didn't check the door, didn't check the hallway, didn't check the cameras. I just ran. I checked into a cheap motel off the highway. I didn't give my real name. I paid in cash. Then, I locked myself inside and pulled the curtains shut. I spent the next 3 days doing nothing but researching. I scoured every forum, every deep web thread, every archive I could find, looking for anything about her. I couldn't find a name, no official reports, but there were stories, whispers, rumors from people who had seen something in Burkittsville, Maryland. Something wrong. A woman who wasn't a woman. A thing that could only be seen in recordings. A face that no one could remember. The Blair Witch wasn't a hoax. It was a warning, and I had ignored it. That night, I turned on my laptop, and I saw the new file. I didn't download it. I didn't open it. It was just there, like it had been waiting for me. A single video file, titled Frame003.mp4. My hands were shaking so hard, I could barely control the trackpad. I clicked on it. The video was security footage from inside my motel room. It showed me, sitting on the bed, staring at the laptop screen, watching this exact video. But then, something moved behind me. A shadow, tall, wrong, leaning over my shoulder, watching me. Then, the video glitched. For exactly one frame, I saw its face. And this time, I remembered it. It wasn't just a hole where a face should be. It was all of them. Every face from every missing person report. Kyle Thornton, the hikers, the names that had been scrubbed from the police archives. Their faces stitched together into something that shouldn't exist. Something that was never meant to be seen. And then, the screen went black. A new file appeared. Another video. I didn't click on it, because I didn't need to. I already knew what it was. It was a live stream of me, right now, sitting in this motel room, staring at my screen, and behind me, in the reflection, the door handle turned. There's a moment before something terrible happens, when your body knows before your mind does. Your skin turns ice cold. Your stomach twists like it's trying to crawl inside itself. Your ears ring with this high-pitched, distant frequency that you can't quite place, like something is trying to tune in. That's what I felt when I saw the door handle turn, not shaking, not jiggling, turning, slow, controlled, like someone was inside the room with me, even though I knew I had locked the door, even though I had been alone since I checked in. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember moving at all. But suddenly, I was pressing my back against the wall. The laptop was still open on the bed. The live stream was still playing. I could still see myself in the reflection of the screen, and I could see the door behind me. The handle turned all the way. The lock clicked, and the door started to open. I don't remember grabbing the lamp off the nightstand. I don't remember throwing it across the room. I just remember the sound, glass shattering, metal slamming against the door, the bulb exploding into pieces that rained down onto the floor like sharp little stars. The door stopped moving. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Something pressed against it. Not a knock, not a bang. Something leaning against the door from the other side. Heavy, like it was listening. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even blink. I just stood there, my hands shaking, my pulse hammering so hard I thought I was going to pass out. And then, the lights went out. I think I screamed. I don't know. Everything was black. Not just dark. Not just the power went out dark. Nothingness. Like I had been ripped out of reality. I turned in a full circle, but there was nothing. No walls, no door, no motel room. Just an endless void. I tried to move. I don't know if I actually did, because there was nothing to move against. No floor, no gravity, no sound except my own breathing. And then, a voice, a whisper, right against my ear. You saw too much. I spun around. Nothing. The voice was behind me again. You shouldn't have watched. I closed my eyes. I pressed my hands against my ears, but the whisper wasn't coming from outside me. It was inside my skull, inside my thoughts, like a memory I had never made, a voice I had never heard before, but had always known. And then, the nothingness cracked. When I woke up, I was somewhere else, a motel room, but not my motel room. This one was wrong. Everything was off by a few inches. The walls were the same. The bed was the same. But the furniture was moved. The light switch wasn't where it should have been. The TV was facing the wrong direction. And the clock on the nightstand, 3:06 a.m. I grabbed my phone. Dead battery. I turned to the laptop. The screen was still on. The live stream was still playing. And in the reflection, the door was open. Not halfway, not a crack, wide open, and something was standing there, tall, too tall. Its face was blurred, like a smudge on glass, like something my brain refused to process. I turned. The door was closed. The room was empty, but in the screen, the thing was still there, watching me, waiting. And then, the video feed changed. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was footage from inside a house, a hallway, dimly lit, wooden floors. Something about it felt wrongly familiar. Then I saw the staircase, and I realized I was watching a live stream from inside my childhood home, the house I grew up in, the house that had been abandoned for 10 years. I tried to move, but my body refused. I could only watch. The camera panned up the stairs, slow, deliberate, like someone was walking, step by step. The air in the motel room grew colder. I felt something behind me, but I couldn't turn around. I couldn't do anything except watch. The camera reached the top of the stairs, a hallway, a single door at the end. My old bedroom. The doorknob turned. The door swung open. The room was empty. No furniture. No dust. Like it had been waiting. Then, something stepped into frame. Not walking, not crawling, just gliding, straight toward the camera. Tall. Too tall. That same blurred face. Like someone had taken 1,000 different faces and layered them on top of each other until they made something else. Something that shouldn't exist. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't. The thing reached the camera. It leaned down. The blur sharpened. For exactly 1 second, I saw what was underneath. A mouth. Not human. Not a mouth at all. A hole. A black, endless hole, stretching open. And from inside, a hand, reaching, clawing, trying to pull me in. I slammed the laptop shut. The motel lights flickered. The mirror cracked. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was in my apartment. Not the motel. Not my childhood home. My apartment. The door was locked. The laptop was gone. The phone was charged. like none of it had ever happened, except for one thing. The scratches were back on my door. 4 long marks, like something had tried to get in, or like something had tried to leave. And on the floor, another envelope. Inside, a photo of me, standing in my old bedroom, looking directly at the camera, even though I haven't been inside that house for 10 years. And at the bottom of the photo, a single handwritten message. You're already there. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know where I am. I don't even know if I'm still me. All I know is this. I was never supposed to see that file. And now, I don't think I exist in the same way anymore. Because if you're reading this, if you're still here, then you might not be real either. I sat on the floor of my apartment, staring at the photo in my hands. The photo of me, standing in my childhood bedroom, a place I hadn't been in 10 years, a place that, according to public records, doesn't exist anymore. The house had burned down, a total loss. There was no way that picture could exist. And yet, I was holding it, the ink still fresh, like it had just been printed. I turned it over, my fingers trembling. There was something written on the back. 2 words. Look outside. A sharp, involuntary shudder ran through me. I didn't want to look. I couldn't look. But my body was moving on its own, dragging itself toward the window, like something outside of me was controlling my movements. I placed my hand against the curtain. I could feel the air change. Thick, heavy, like I was standing at the bottom of the ocean. Something was waiting on the other side, and it wanted me to see it. I pulled the curtain back, and that's when I saw myself. I was standing on the sidewalk, right outside my building. Same clothes, same posture, same frozen expression of absolute horror. I was looking up at my window, at me, inside the apartment. My stomach dropped. I stumbled backward, the curtain falling shut. My mind was fracturing. I had gone outside. No, I hadn't. I had never left the room. I was right here. But I had seen myself standing there. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera app. I turned it to the front-facing view, and I saw something behind me. It wasn't a person, not a shadow, not a reflection. It was distorted, like something trying to wear a human shape, but getting it all wrong. Its arms were too long, its fingers twitched, its head tilted in unnatural angles, snapping from side to side like a puppet with broken strings. I squeezed my eyes shut, told myself it wasn't real. But then I felt it, cold breath against my neck, and something whispered into my ear. You're not supposed to be here. I opened my eyes. The camera feed was glitching. The screen flickered. For a single, impossible second, I saw her face. Not blurred, not hidden, but clear. 1,000 faces layered over each other, like someone had taken every missing person from the case files, from the deep web forums, from the dark places no one ever searches, and stitched them together into something that should never exist. Their eyes were still moving, still looking at me, still screaming. Then the screen went black, and my phone burst into flames. I don't remember running. I don't remember grabbing my keys. I just remember the feeling, like something was inside me, like something had crawled into my skin. I threw open my apartment door, bolted down. The elevator was too far. I sprinted for the stairwell. I hit the first step, and the lights died. Darkness swallowed everything. I kept running. I could hear it behind me. Not footsteps, not breathing. Something deeper. Something that sounded like bones twisting into the wrong shapes. Like skin being peeled away. I ran faster. Down one flight, 2, 3. Then I saw it. The door at the bottom of the stairs. The exit. I slammed into it at full speed and burst outside. But I wasn't outside. I was in the woods. The trees stretched endlessly in every direction. A forest that shouldn't exist. But I had seen it before. In the videos, in the police reports. Maryland. I was in the fucking woods. I turned around. The door was gone. The stairs were gone. There was nothing behind. Only endless black trees. And then the sounds started. Distant whispers. Familiar voices. Voices I had heard before. The missing people. Calling my name. Begging. Crying. Their voices were coming from the trees. From inside the trees. Carved into the bark. Their mouths still moving. Still whispering. Still screaming. I stumbled back. My head was spinning. I was dreaming. I was hallucinating. Then I felt the breath on my neck. You were supposed to see it. I woke up in my bed, back in my apartment. The sun was rising outside. My phone was next to me, untouched. No fire, no damage. I sat up, shaking. It was a dream. It had to be. But then I turned to look at my front door and saw the envelope waiting for me. I picked it up with trembling hands. Inside, a photo, not of me, not of the woods, a photo of you, sitting at your screen, reading this. A single message written on the back. You're already there. I downloaded a dark web file called The Godzilla Project. The last recorded incident happened in 2022 and was classified as an earthquake. Alright, so before I get into this, I just want to say, I'm not some conspiracy nut or wannabe hacker. I'm just a regular guy who made a really stupid decision out of boredom. If I had known what I was getting myself into, I would have slammed my laptop shut and gone to bed like a normal person. But I didn't. And now, I don't even know if I'll make it to next week. This all started about a month ago. I was at home, scrolling through Reddit, half watching a YouTube video about weird internet mysteries. You know, the kind where some guy with a creepy voice talks about lost media, unsolved crimes, and the dark web. I'd always been curious about that last part. You always hear stories about hitmen, red rooms, and freaky experiments, but most of them sound fake, like something out of a bad horror movie. But then, I came across a post. It was buried deep in an old r/unresolved mysteries thread. Someone had mentioned a classified government file that had leaked onto the dark web years ago. The file was called The Godzilla Project, and apparently the last recorded incident tied to it was in 2022, officially reported as an earthquake. I thought it was bullshit at first. The thread was filled with people either calling it a hoax or saying it got scrubbed from the internet. But then, one comment stood out. You won't find it on Google, but if you dig deep enough, you might get lucky. Just don't try to download it. People who do, don't stick around for long. That was enough to get me hooked. Now, I don't want to sound like an idiot, but my curiosity got the best of me. I work in IT, so I knew my way around VPNs, Tor, and encrypted sites. I wasn't planning on doing anything crazy. I just wanted to look, see if there was anything to this so-called Godzilla project. So, I spent the next 3 nights digging. I went through old forums, abandoned message boards, and hidden wiki pages, and just when I was about to give up, I found it. It was on an Onion site that looked like it hadn't been updated in years. No flashy graphics, no ads, just a black background with a single download link in red text. Project GZL_zip. No description, no warnings, Just there. At that point, my heart was pounding. I knew I should walk away, but my brain kept telling me, what if it's real? So, like a dumbass, I clicked it. The download was surprisingly fast, considering the file was almost 2 gigabytes. The moment it finished, my laptop froze for a second. Then the screen went black. Just as I was about to panic, it came back on. Everything looked normal, except my Wi-Fi had disconnected. I checked my router. No issues. Every other device in my apartment was still connected. My laptop, though, nothing. Like it had been cut off from the internet completely. That was weird, but not scary. Not yet, anyway. I figured maybe the file had triggered some security thing on my network. So, I shrugged it off and opened the zip file. Inside, there was only one folder. It was labeled, "Do not open." If that wasn't the biggest red flag in history, I don't know what is. But I was already in too deep. I double-clicked it, and that's when I realized this wasn't some dumb creepypasta file. Inside the folder were 3 things: a video file labeled Incident 4-Tokyo 2022.mp4, a PDF document titled Subject-Anomalous Lifeform, a text file named Read Me First. Now, let me just say, by this point, I was officially creeped out. This wasn't some edgy ARG. The document looked real, like an actual government report, full of redacted text and official-looking stamps. And the video, it was 4 minutes and 42 seconds long. At first, I hesitated. My gut was screaming at me to delete everything and pretend I never found it. But I had to know. So, I clicked on the video first, and I swear to God, I wish I hadn't. I should have deleted it. I should have shut my laptop, tossed it out the window, and pretended none of this ever happened. But I didn't. I pressed play. The video started with static, just grainy black and white distortion, like an old TV trying to find a signal. Then, suddenly, the screen cut to security footage. The timestamp in the corner read, March 16th, 2022, Tokyo, Japan. The footage was taken from a high vantage point, overlooking a crowded Shibuya intersection. I could see people walking, cars stopping at red lights, massive billboards flashing advertisements for Nike, McDonald's, and some new Netflix show. Just a normal day in the busiest city on Earth. Then, at exactly 4:17 p.m., the camera glitched. For less than a second, the entire video warped, like the footage had been corrupted. The colors inverted, people's faces blurred into featureless smears, and a horrible, low-frequency hum filled my speakers. It sounded like something was vibrating at an inhuman frequency. Deep, rumbling, almost organic. Then the video snapped back to normal. But something had changed. The pedestrians in the crosswalk had all stopped moving. Every single person, hundreds of them, just frozen in place. Cars, buses, motorcycles, all at a dead stop. Even the electronic billboards had gone black. For 5 seconds, nothing moved. Then the earth started shaking. At first, it looked like a normal earthquake. Buildings trembling, streetlights swaying, people stumbling as they regained movement. But then, the sky went dark. Not like a storm, not like clouds rolling in. It was instant. 1 second, bright afternoon light. The next, pitch black, like someone had flipped a switch on the sun. And then they started screaming. Not normal screaming. This was primal, animalistic. People shrieking at the top of their lungs, clawing at their faces, tearing at their own skin like something was crawling under it. I could see a businessman in a suit slamming his forehead into a telephone pole over and over until blood streamed down his face. A teenage girl grabbed her own hair, yanking it out in chunks, her mouth twisted in a soundless wail. A mother pulled her own child into a desperate hug, but the kid's eyes were missing, just black, gaping holes where his pupils should have been. Then the camera glitched again, and this time, it wasn't the same Tokyo anymore. The sky was now a deep, pulsing red. The buildings, Shibuya 109, Starbucks, H&M, were covered in something, a thick, black organic growth that looked almost like veins spreading across the structures, twitching, pulsing in sync with the sky. The people, they weren't people anymore. Some of them were fused to the ground, their bodies melted into the pavement, their arms stretching unnaturally, as if they were still trying to crawl away. Others were absorbed into the buildings, their faces barely visible, beneath the pulsating black mass, mouths frozen mid-scream, and then the camera tilted upward. For a moment, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was too big. At first, I thought it was a mountain that had somehow appeared in the middle of Tokyo, a black, writhing monstrosity that stretched into the sky, its surface covered in thousands of human faces, all screaming, all moving as if they were alive, but trapped within its flesh. But then it turned, and I saw its eye. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before, an impossibly large, slit pupil eye, glowing a deep, unnatural yellow. And the moment it looked into the camera, the footage cut to static. But the audio kept playing. I heard something, a deep, guttural breathing. It was slow, heavy, like the sound of a titanic creature inhaling and exhaling. And beneath it, I could hear something else. A voice. Not human. Not even remotely. It was a low, distorted whisper, speaking in a language I didn't understand, layered with so many overlapping voices that it sounded like 100 people talking at once. But then, for just a split second, I swore I heard something in English. One single phrase, buried beneath the noise. You were not meant to see this. And then the video cut to black. Then my laptop shut off. Not crashed. Shut off completely. I sat there, staring at the dark screen, my breathing shallow. My room felt too quiet now, like all the sound had been sucked out of the air. Then, without warning, my phone buzzed. I jumped so hard, I almost fell out of my chair. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. Unknown number. Number, no way. I wasn't answering that. But as soon as I went to decline, a text message popped up. And when I read it, I felt the blood drain from my face. Delete the file. Now. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Before I could react, another text. We know where you are. And then, before I even had time to process that, something loud crashed outside my apartment. I leapt to my feet, my stomach twisting into knots. My hands felt numb as I pulled back the curtain. There was a black van parked across the street. No logos, no license plate, just sitting there. And the driver, they were looking directly at my window. The van didn't move. The driver didn't move. But I knew they weren't just watching me. They were waiting. I slowly backed away from the window, my breathing shallow. My brain was screaming at me to do something. Run, hide, delete the file, anything. But my body, it just wouldn't move. I felt like I was locked in place, my legs trembling so bad I thought they'd give out underneath me. Then my phone buzzed again. A third message. Do not run. Do not call for help. Do not speak. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My fingers were shaking as I forced myself to type a reply. Who are you? Nothing. No response. I looked back at the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. The driver was gone. The van was still there, but the front seat was now empty, Then, from somewhere inside my apartment, I heard a floorboard creak. I spun around so fast, I nearly tripped over my own feet. My living room was dark, silent, but suddenly it felt wrong, like I wasn't alone, like something was breathing in the same air as me. The kitchen, the hallway, the bathroom, the closet. Where? I took a shaky step forward, listening. Another creak. This time, right behind me. I turned, my heart slamming against my ribs, and for a split second, I thought I saw something in the reflection of my TV screen. A shape, a silhouette, too tall, too thin. But when I spun around, nothing. Empty air. I backed toward my bedroom, forcing my breath to stay quiet. My phone screen was still glowing in my hand, and in the reflection, I saw something that made my stomach lurch. The closet door. It was open, not wide open, just a crack. But I knew for a fact I hadn't left it like that. I took a step back. Another. My fingers hovered over my phone, ready to dial 911. But then, a whisper from inside the closet. Not words, not in English, just a soft, dry whisper that barely sounded human. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then the door creaked open another inch, and I saw it, just for a split second. A hand, long, gnarled fingers wrapped around the edge of the doorframe, skin too pale, too stretched, nails blackened, jagged, like something that had been digging. I ran. I fucking ran, bolted out of my apartment, down the hall, didn't even bother locking the door behind me. My feet barely touched the ground as I sprinted down the stairs, 2 at a time, lungs burning. The lobby was empty. No security guard, no front desk clerk, just flickering lights and the dull hum of the vending machine. But the glass front doors, they were open, not just unlocked, wide open, like someone had come in, or was still here. I didn't stop to think. I just ran outside, into the cold night air. The street was eerily silent. No cars, no people, just the faint glow of streetlights stretching into the distance. And the van, it was gone. I gasped for breath, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone. My brain was scrambling, trying to make sense of what the fuck just happened. Was I dreaming? Was I losing my mind? But then, my phone buzzed one last time. A new message. Look up. My stomach twisted into a knot. Slowly, so slowly, I lifted my head. And that's when I saw it. High above me, near the top of my apartment building. A figure, standing on the rooftop edge. Too far to see clearly, but I knew it wasn't normal. It was tall, unnaturally tall. Its arms were too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, like it was watching me. Then, it moved, not climbed, not jumped. It crawled, down the side of the building, fast, too fast. I turned and ran. I don't even remember where I went, just that I kept running, sprinting down the dark, empty streets like my life depended on it. Because it did. I don't remember how long I ran. My legs burned. My chest felt like it was going to cave in. My vision blurred from the cold air whipping against my face, and my ears rang with the distant sound of sirens. But no matter how far I went, I could still feel it. That thing, crawling, stalking. Its movements were unnatural, like a giant insect skittering down the side of a building, its limbs twisting at angles that shouldn't be possible. It never made a sound, not even the scrape of nails against concrete. But every time I turned my head, it was closer. I ducked into the first place I saw, a 24-hour McDonald's. The fluorescent lights were too bright, too artificial, but the moment I stepped inside, everything felt wrong. Not safer, worse, because nobody looked at me. There were people inside, a cashier, a handful of customers, A couple of guys sitting in the corner scrolling on their phones, but none of them reacted to the fact that I had just burst in like I was running for my life. I tried to catch my breath, moving toward the counter. The cashier, a girl in her early 20s, with dead eyes and a plastic smile, just stared straight ahead. "Please," I gasped. "I need to use your phone." She didn't blink. "Sir, we only take cash or card." "What?" I turned to the other customers. A woman sitting by the window, eating a cheeseburger with slow, mechanical bites. A man in a suit, sipping from an empty cup. None of them reacted. None of them even blinked. My hands were shaking. My whole body was screaming at me to run, but I forced myself to step back toward the door. And that's when I noticed it. The windows. Outside should have been the Tokyo skyline. Bright neon signs, flashing billboards, endless streams of headlights and taillights. But all I could see was black. Not darkness. Not the empty night. Just solid black, stretching forever, like the entire city had been swallowed by something. And then, the static came back. A low, guttural hum filled the air, vibrating through my skull. I staggered, clutching my head, as the cashier's plastic smile widened. "Sir," she repeated, voice warping like a corrupted audio file. "We only take cash or card." Then she reached over the counter. I barely had time to move before her hand latched onto my wrist. It was cold, not human cold, metal cold. Her skin was like plastic, smooth and lifeless. But when she gripped me, it felt wrong, like a hand that had never been a hand before. I screamed and yanked away. Her fingers peeled off in long rubbery strands, stretching like melted wax before snapping back into place. And then the entire restaurant went silent. The chewing stopped. The sipping stopped. The low murmur of artificial conversation cut out all at once. And when I looked around, they were all staring at me. Their faces were wrong. Eyes too wide, pupils too small, skin too smooth, like mannequins that had been dipped in human features. Their mouths stretched open in unison. And they screamed. Not words, not human sounds, just raw, piercing noise. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The sound drilled into my skull, vibrating through my teeth, and I ran, bolted out the doors, and straight into nothing. The city was gone. Tokyo didn't exist anymore. I was standing in the middle of an endless black void, the ground beneath me made of something wrong. Not concrete, not asphalt, something that moved, like flesh. I turned. The McDonald's was still there, but the windows were gone. The walls stretched endlessly upward, merging into the black sky. And the people inside, they were melting, their bodies twisted, stretching, their mouths still locked open in that horrifying, unnatural scream. And then, the voice came back, the same whisper from the video, deep, distorted, impossibly old. "You were not meant to see this." I collapsed. My vision blurred. The ground trembled beneath me, pulsing like a living thing. And as my head hit the surface, I saw something in the distance. A silhouette. Massive. Towering. Its shape writhing, shifting, as if it wasn't bound to any single form. But I knew what it was. I knew what I had found. The Godzilla project was never a myth. And the last recorded earthquake in 2022. It wasn't an earthquake. It was something waking up. Something we weren't supposed to know existed. Something that had just found me. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I could only watch. The silhouette in the distance, the thing, was growing, expanding. No, not expanding. Getting closer. And the more it approached, the more I realized. It didn't walk. It didn't crawl. It didn't even move. in the way living things should. It just existed in one place, and then another, as if it was slipping through gaps in reality itself. The black void around me pulsed, breathing like it was alive. The ground beneath me, warm, wet, wrong, twitched with every pulse, and I could feel something moving underneath it. Something massive, shifting just beneath the surface, like veins thick enough to be tunnels. My vision blurred, my ears were ringing, and then that whispering voice came back. You were not meant to see this. It wasn't coming from the thing in the distance. It wasn't coming from the sky. It was coming from inside me. I felt it in my bones. It rattled through my ribs like a second heartbeat, crawling up my throat like something trying to push its way out. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. And then the sky split open. I don't mean the clouds parted. I don't mean some cosmic event happened. I mean the sky itself tore in half, like someone had peeled back the fabric of the world. And behind it, there was something else. Not stars, not space. Something deeper. A vast, writhing mass of impossible shapes and colors, shifting and pulsing like a brain that stretched across infinity. And within it, thousands of eyes stared down at me, watching, unblinking, waiting. I was nothing. A speck, a fragment, a mistake. And then the thing, the Godzilla project, the anomaly, the entity that was never meant to be recorded, the thing that erased an entire city in 2022. It stepped forward, and I saw it, the true form of what we called Godzilla. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't a dinosaur. It wasn't even a thing. It was a concept made flesh, a shape that refused to settle. One moment, it was towering with jagged, inhuman spines, its skin shifting between obsidian black and molten red, dripping with something that sizzled against the ground. The next, it was a writhing mass of limbs and faces, human bodies fused together in impossible ways, their mouths locked in silent, eternal screams. And then it was neither. It was the city itself. I saw Tokyo inside it, buildings melting into its body, people trapped beneath its skin, streets folding, twisting, breaking apart like puzzle pieces, being reassembled into something monstrous. And then it turned to me. Its eyes, not two, not four, but thousands, fixed themselves on me all at once. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. And then the voice inside me changed. It wasn't whispering anymore. It was screaming. Not words, just pure, raw terror. Because I wasn't supposed to be here. Because I wasn't supposed to see it. Because now, it saw me. And then I woke up. I shot upright, gasping for air. My lungs burned like I had been drowning in something thick and black. I was in my apartment. Or at least, a version of it. Everything looked the same, but off. The walls twitched. The air felt thick, like I was breathing in something alive. My phone sat on my desk, but the screen was wrong. The icons were stretched, distorted, the text twisting into symbols I didn't recognize. And then, my laptop turned on by itself. I didn't touch it. I didn't want to touch it. But the moment the screen lit up, I saw a video file, a new one, labeled Incident 5, my name, 2024.mp4. It had a timestamp, exactly 5 minutes from now. My stomach dropped. My entire body went cold. I wasn't breathing anymore. I was waiting for whatever was about to happen, waiting for whatever was coming for me. The seconds ticked down. 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and then someone knocked on my door. 3 slow, heavy knocks. I turned to look, my hands shaking uncontrollably, and beneath the doorframe, a shadow moved. Not a person, not a shape, something else, something tall, something thin, something that had been following me since the moment I downloaded that file. My phone buzzed. A single new message. No number, no name, just 2 words. Open it. I sat there frozen as the knocking started again, louder this time, more insistent. And then the doorknob turned.